What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video where I've spent the evening on the PTS. We did it live on Twitch and YouTube so that I could get a whole bunch of people's opinions. I just kind of felt like I needed a little bit of assistance in guiding my thoughts before I made this video, and obviously people to go into the PTS and play with, so that I get that real feel of what it actually will be like when it actually goes live, because there's quite a lot coming in this PTS. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let's get straight into it with a massive W. As you can see here, look at the costume I have got on. I am full red hunter, and I didn't even realize this. I logged on, kind of went AFK for a little minute, came back and chat were like, how have you got this costume? What is going on? Because when I play the game at the moment, I have the purple hunter costume on, but with the Phoenix Flame mask. Well, that's exactly what I've got on now, but I am all red. And let me show you exactly what is actually happening here. So if you go into your apparel, you can see here I've got the two brand new masks. When you change mask, the purple flame gear that you can buy in the game right now, and just be warned, there's only a week left to buy it. As of Tuesday, the timer will be gone. So this won't be available next season when this change actually happens. So if you want the full red suit, you've kind of got to pick it up now in advance. So, but as you can see, depending on which one that you equip, it actually changes. Now, I actually kind of like this. I think this is a great way forward for when it comes to premium apparel, because we've earned part of this in the game, and it actually adds a little bit of variety to what we bought premium, giving a little bit more value to it. And I think there's a lot of places they could go with this. I actually think, yeah, this is pretty cool. And very quickly, just to confirm, I made a short video and posted it on X and tweeted to Pale, the art director, and basically said, please tell me this is happening. And he replied, yes. And obviously everyone is pretty happy about this as well. So yeah, huge W, great way to start the PTS with some good news. Now let's talk about the DZ, why we are here, because we're at one of the vendors right now. And as you can see, they have actually altered the prices of the caches that you can buy from the three vendors. Now, I still think the exotic cache, as I'm here, is quite expensive at 130, because we've got a brand new exotic cache in one of the other vendors, which I won't spoil for you, but I think this essentially for 130, as it actually has the item in, probably needs to have 2 items in so that it doesn't get left behind. Also, I think the prototype core cache only having 1 in at 125 is way too expensive. We played for just over 2 hours in the DZ as a group of 4, and although I got close to 200 credits from that DZ session, as you can see here, I had about 20 already. I would only be able to buy 1 of these, only giving me 1 prototype core. There's just 0 value in this, and you might as well be using the prototype vendor instead in the base of operations. So that's going to be my feedback for that. And all the things I'm talking to you about now obviously are about the PTS, and it's just what I'm going to put into my feedback when I provide it when the PTS finishes. So let me know if you agree with this, if you think I'm barking up the wrong tree or not. Obviously dead helpful and dead useful, just so I can kind of sometimes question what it is I'm actually thinking. And then we've got the prototype random cache. Now, I kind of agree that this one is kind of okay at its price point. I know it seems expensive at 260, but what Alex said, basically the game director on the live, is this has a better chance of rolling almost max compared to any other cache in the game, even higher than the ones that are at the base of operations. So although the loot pool is going to be absolutely enormous for this, you do know that you're going to get something out of this that might be of value. Yes, you always run the chance that it could be a rainbow or not, but it will get to the point at some point where you have an abundance if you play the DZ a lot of these cores, and you might want to run the risk with this. basically bumping your PvE gear very, very high. But I don't think it's too much of a problem, that one being just a little bit more expensive, just because of the nature of what you can actually get. Over at the DZ East DZ, as you can see here, we've got the exotic cash still as well. We've got the recal cash for 40, which I think is pretty good value for money. And then we've got the optimization cash for 60, which again, I think is pretty good value for money. I would have preferred it being 40 and 50 because I always need flags, but you can't have everything. And then over at the DZ West vendor, we've got exotic cash and probably the two most important caches in these DZ vendors. We've got the exotic component cache, which gives you 4 exotics for 120, and then reconstructed cache here for 180. Now, let's just very quickly talk about the actual DZ itself before we kind of talk about the actual caches themselves. So I played for just over 2.5 hours. We ran around, we killed stuff. Obviously, modifiers weren't maxed out, which would make that process a whole lot quicker. But I still only came out of that big play session with 207. Now, when you kill the extraction hunters, you get a chance to get an exotic if you get the kill. So there is some extra exotic components to be having at that point, but this still doesn't really make it a valid exotic farm, because to come out of that whole 2.5 hours with maybe we get 4 from this, maybe 10 exotic components, just doesn't feel that great. And maybe that is where this is going to be its downfall, because what they've got to think about a little bit as well, we know that the PvP DZ actually gets a 200% boost, which is great. It always should give you more than the PvE DZ does, but I feel like the PvE DZ really probably should be dropping where the PvP one is currently, and then the PvP one even more. Like the credits that we're getting is just not enough to want to farm this after I finish my seasonal modifier. And that's a little bit rough, because the seasonal modifier is actually dependent on doing things in the actual DZ itself. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit, but hopefully we'll put some feedback in and we'll hopefully see for some kind of balance changes. Essentially, running tier 10 escalation is still going to be your best farm for prototype cores and exotics as well. The Caduceus has had a buff. It's now 2%, which is actually 2% for PvP and PvE as it stands at the moment, which is a little bit weird. I would have thought it would have been less in PvE, but maybe that won't make it into the final version. But yeah, a little bit of a buff. We tried using it. It's still not that great, because essentially, you know, it's heal from crits and it's just extremely slow and chuggy at firing. Now, maybe this would be great if you get yourself back into a high-end build where you don't have to rely on any stacking and things like that. But yeah, it just feels below the mark even after it's buffed to 2% to what it could be. I think maybe it was a miss not having this controlled by skill tiers and having it controlled by crits. Yeah, it's yeah, a little bit just not quite there. And then obviously as well, the danger is the more they pump this up, the more risk they create in the fact that multiple people can use it in your group. And I think maybe it should have been significantly higher, maybe 10%, but then only one person can run it. But yeah, it just doesn't feel that great, and it does feel like it misses just a little bit. Right, other things that we have got. So when you come into expertise, we've got the brain break, which we knew about, but we've got the claw. So I'm assuming this actually is probably going to be one of the classified missions as a reward. That probably makes sense to me, because we've got another one as well, the Old Glory. We know we're getting 2 classified missions. These guns were not mentioned when it came to the patch notes previously. We can't get them in the game right now as far as I know, so they probably our 2 brand new classified mission rewards. So a couple more things about the seasonal modifiers and the DZ. So essentially at this moment in time, when you want to extract from the DZ, you need to get a hold of a stabilizing agent. Here is a picture of the stabilizing agent, me picking it up from within the DZ. It comes from the chest. It's not 100%. I did have quite a rough time at one point trying to get one of these. But if you open them in a group, everybody in your team has a chance to get one. You need this now to be able to extract, which actually could prove pretty difficult because the chests were empty for a lot of time because of how busy the DZ was, meaning you're always going to have to be on the lookout for somebody else extracting. So essentially you can go and hijack their extract and get your stuff out as well. As many people as you like can put loot onto the rope. No, it's not limited to 4 bags at all or anything like that. So that is going to be the bottleneck on getting out, especially if you want to end your play session early. But yeah, that is going to be a little bit of a bottleneck. In the caches as well, you can get these sample canister caches. Now, there's 3 as far as I know from what we've seen this evening that you can possibly get. And if I find where they put them into my delivery box, you can see the sample canister cache gives you 30. Then you can get a small one that gives you 15. And you can also get a large that gives you 60, which is a huge amount, which I thought actually was a pretty good way of boosting these canisters. Now you're saying, why do I need these canisters, Tickle? Well, the reason you need these canisters is that you need to buff yourself this season. So as you can see here, as you trade in these canisters, it will buff up your sample size and then you'll get all of these buffs. Now these have changed significantly since the last PTS. We get 40% optimal range, 35% weapon handling, 20% magazine size, 15% damage to armor, and 15% rate of fire. And you level this up, but you only get this when you have high what's the result here, high quality munitions. As you can see here, I'm capped out at 600. That's the most that you can have. Every time I reload, it uses 1 of these munitions. So what is very interesting though when it comes to these high quality munitions is you can actually bypass the need to actually use them. And when I say that, if I flip on just this gun here and I put on the whiplash, so you can see here on the right hand side, it shows I've got 600 of the high quality. If I do this and I reload, now I've got 599. If I do this, flip to my whiplash and flip back, my gun reloaded and it did not use any of the munitions. So you can actually save yourself a little bit by using guns that have the ability to reload themselves. Obviously, we have an augment that has the ability to do that as well. We have the Chatterbox, we have the Bullet King, we have Steady Handed. All of these guns will not deplete your munitions. Now, whether that's intended or not, I do not know. Seems unlikely, but I'm not sure that they've got the time to fix it for all of these talents unless they have done already. So how do you get more of these munitions? Well, you collect sample canisters in the DZ. And when you collect these canisters, we get this one here. There we go. So now I've got 79. Let's get to the max. Anything that you have, if you go over, it just drops them on the floor. So you've no need to worry about that. But as you can see here, I've got a max now of 90 out of 90. If you come here, this wording doesn't make any sense, but essentially you can trade 90 in and it will push the sample size up and then effectively leveling you up. This bar doesn't work proper either at the moment, but we'll buy 90 and then you can see I'm at 350. If I head into here, you can see a proper representation here. Now we have the 20% magazine size added. I've got none of the canisters left. However, it did refill my munitions as well. And essentially, that is going to be the gameplay loop. If you want to use your seasonal modifier buff, you have to have the munitions. To get the munitions, you do have to have some of, which I haven't got any more, but we'll open one more cache here, some of the sample canisters. Please open. So that you can trade them in and get the high quality munitions. Meaning there is always going to be a need next season if you want the damage buffs to actually go into the PvE DZ. And I think therein what lies the actual issue, because at the moment it's just not that rewarding for anything but buffing yourself for the seasonal modifier. And I just kind of hope that they can get that balance right. And like I said, the PvP DZ being even more rewarding on top of that. All right, so that is the DZ. Let's have a look at the map. Now, I think they said originally that this rotates every the DZ rotates once a week. It actually seems to be rotating about every 8 hours. If you go in there at the moment, you'll get a timer that's currently saying that I think it's got about 10 minutes left before it's going to switch up to here. This morning when it launched, it was over here. So it seems to be that there's about an 8-hour timer right now before it will switch around and change to a different DZ. And I think I kind of like that as well, to be perfectly honest. So in the PTS, you can see there, look, we've got the Underboss. Now I'm very surprised that the Underboss is in the PTS. I'm not going to lie. I really thought they might actually just keep it out because it wasn't in the last PTS, but it is, however, in this one. So let's take this off. It has come with rate of fire, which is a little bit unfortunate because it is going to look like it's firing faster than what it actually will. But one thing that is strange about it, which makes me feel like it maybe it's not quite there, the talent description's not filled out, but maybe it is actually working. But it fires so fast. Now obviously I've got strikers on as well, which will give it more rate of fire, but it is just a little bit wild. But you can see that the talent itself is actually working. I'm just not sure it's going to be a gun that I would actually use. So as you can see here, shooting an enemy with this weapon applies the mark, which we saw the 1. It's obviously a work in progress. You can only apply 1 mark at a time. Shooting another enemy will transfer the mark. More marks can be applied on the same enemy by other agents using this weapon. Maximum amount of marks that can be applied to the enemy is 4. This weapon deals 20% amp damage to marked enemies. The bonus is increased by 5 for each extra mark on the weapon other than your own. So yeah, I mean, it could be okay. I'm not sure. You would have to kind of sync up with your friends to get them all to run it. But yeah, not entirely sure. It'll be one that we do some maths on once it actually releases. And that really is my initial thoughts on everything in the PTS at the moment. A couple of other things that we should really go over that will not be easily visible if you're just kind of jumping on and having a look. There actually has been some changes to Escalation. Now we know that they're bringing the loot back to the crates, so it really does give you an incentive to run each of the missions every day, because any of the crates will now have a chance to drop you a targeted loot. Well, not a targeted loot, a prototype piece of loot. But because of that, they have also made some changes to the tokens, and obviously because the leader does not currently get rewarded at all. As you can see here, the vendor price has actually gone up and doubled. These were 5 and 10, they're now 10 and 20. So that is a little bit more expensive. They have reduced the cost for entry now, not by too much. So like tier 0 is still 0, tier 1 is still 1, tier 2 is 4, tier 3 is going to be 8, tier 4 is going to be 13, tier 5 is going to be 19, tier 6 is going to be 27, tier 7 is now 37, tier 8 is now 49, tier 9 is 63, and tier 10 is still 80 tokens, only 7 less than what it currently is. However, for tier 10, you will put in 80 tokens and you will return 102, giving yourself a 22 coin bonus. Now you're going to be like, Tickle, but currently you get 25 for doing nothing. Well, that's not true anymore either. The participation reward has now been lowered to 11, meaning that it definitely does benefit you being the leader rather than just a person that actually pays no risk to it. So I'm not quite so sure how I feel about that. Does really depend on how much you play on a given day, because obviously you could do each of the missions. You could also get the crate prototypes, but at that point then, because you're not getting 25 anymore, it's probably going to turn out that you get less the longer that you play than you play now. But it is definitely fairer that the leader who takes the risk gets the most reward. I like that a lot. I think maybe it could have been 22 and 15. I'm not sure. 11 feels a little bit low, but we'll kind of see how that plays out. Because to be honest, as of right now, in the real game, I do have an abundance of these coins. And then I can use these coins in the shop to buy prototype cores. Exotic components are still a huge bottleneck. Now, talking about exotic components though, that has also had a change. Tier 10 now nets you 4, Tier 9 3, Tier 8 3, Tier 7 2, Tier 6 2, and Tier 5 1. That's had a very small change, but we are getting a little bit more. They've also, and I didn't really see this one coming, they've also lowered the cost for the upgrades of the cores. So from level 1 to 2 it now costs 1, from level 2 to 3 it costs 3, 3 to 4 it costs 3, 4 to 5 it costs 5, 5 to 6 it costs 6, 6 to 7 it costs 6, 7 to 8 it costs 6, 8 to 9 it costs 6, and 9 to 10 it costs 10. So that has been lowered for leveling up the augments, but there's no change on the PTS for re-rolling. That's still good up to the hefty cost of 25, and I really feel like that probably should be dropped a little bit, considering that everything else has now been kind of cancelled, balanced out in a way that it probably should have been from the beginning. And that's kind of it. This video's been way too long, but that's kind of everything that I've noticed in the PTS. I've played for a couple of hours this evening. The red hunter costumes is a massive W, but that is going to be it for the video. If you want a Discord that's got the daily escalation targeted loot posted, so you can put notifications on it, get it sent straight to you every day as it resets, join my Discord. The link is in the description down below. But don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, agents, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.